So, are we going to war with Iran next? I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. I know, good to see you too. Good to see you too. So that's our top story of the day. But hang on, I don't know what's going on. What's going on here? I think Hal J left some weird alarm clock in the studio. What is this thing?
Then put your little hand in mine. There ain't no hill or mountain.
All right, that takes care of that. Donald Trump was asked about this over the weekend a couple times. I want to play you two of the clips. One of them is when he's on the airplane, so the audio's terrible. But he sent an armada over there. And so you do remember what was just happening a couple months ago. We sent the armada to Venezuela. What happened there? Were we just there to do some snorkeling? Is that what we're doing? Just checking out the health of the local coral reefs? No, we went over there, put a handful of just absolute stone cold badasses on the ground, took the president of, or dictator, I guess, of another country and just brought him back. Not one life lost on our side. Handful of Cubans regretted their decision. But is this what we're doing again? Here come the Americans. Here come the Americans. And so I love this because this juxtaposes with the fact that they're having some sort of talks right now on a new nuclear deal or whatever. And so imagine sitting across the table. You don't even have to be a good negotiator. You just have to say, look, here's what we're asking for in the deal. And they're like, well, that's not acceptable to us. And it's like, well, how about we just ask for a little bit more? It's like, how about I don't think you're negotiating in good faith. And you're like, what's that noise? Is that Apache helicopters over the horizon? Oh my goodness, here come the Americans. You want to rethink the deal now, Mr. Ayatollah? I mean, really, just why don't you just go ahead and sign this? And we're not going to have a bunch of Arnold Schwarzenegger Rambo guys just come snatch you up in the middle of the night, send you back to New York City in your robes. So yeah, here's a couple of clips. First, let's do them in chronological order for no reason. This was on Saturday. Donald Trump was asked about the ships being sent to Iran.
Could you give us an update on where your thinking is right now with Iran, if you have made a final decision on what you want to do?
I mean, I certainly can't tell you that, but we do have very big, powerful ships heading in that direction. I hope they negotiate something that's acceptable. If you could make a negotiated deal that would be satisfactory with no nuclear weapons, they should do that, but I don't know that they will, but they are talking to us, seriously talking to us.
The Ayatollah said if he does that, he's risking a regional war. So Donald Trump was asked about that yesterday. This was his response in Florida.
Sir, on Iran, the Supreme Leader today said that U.S. attack could spark a regional war. Do you have any response to that, sir?
Why wouldn't he say that? Of course you're going to say that, but we have the biggest, most powerful ships in the world over there, very close, a couple of days, and hopefully we'll make a deal. If we don't make a deal, then we'll find out whether or not he was right.
All right, so let's be fair here. Let's talk about war with Iran. Let's make the T chart. We got the pros and the cons. And I want you to add to the pros and cons list, and I'll keep an unofficial list over here in the James Show notes for the day. But on the pros and cons of going to war with Iran, and I don't mean to sound so flippant about going to war. Generally speaking, but let's go ahead and get like the principled stuff out of the way. Let me do my little annoying libertarian thing. If we're going to be doing military action that looks like wartime actions, it should go through Congress. So military action should go through Congress. That's one criticism of it. It's not going to do that. Generally speaking, I'm a non-interventionist. Also, generally speaking, sometimes when we knock over the heads of state, they get replaced by someone even worse. Like when we ran the Soviet Union out of Afghanistan, which gave us the Taliban, which gave us 9/11. Didn't really work out in our favor. So sometimes it does work out. You know, kicking the communists out of South Korea really worked out. Now we get Samsung refrigerators and K-pop demon hunters. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I would say Iraq's probably better now under the leadership it has currently than when it was under Saddam Hussein. But then again, we kind of created Saddam Hussein. So there's a tug, push and a pull here. However, the optimistic side is, can we do what we just did in Venezuela? Can we just drop a helicopter there, not lose one American life? And our intervention in that country really takes about 24 minutes and is not some intervention, is not some occupation or forever war. Because I mean, I don't even know what the answer is if you ask me, are we at war with Venezuela? Because the answer is like, not really. No one's shooting anybody. We're not launching any missiles. We did just go take their president and chuck him into jail. So where are you at on this? Iran, do we really need to go take them out? Because if it's going to be as easy as Venezuela, I mean, how do you argue against that? Other than, we don't have the right to go tell other countries who their leaders are, but then you can push back. And if if it's not legitimately elected democratic leaders, then they're just dictators. And so that's not the will of the people. 800-288-9227. I'm not going to pretend to have all the answers here. Generally speaking, knowing what I know, I wouldn't go in and knock out an Ayatollah. But he knows stuff we don't know. Generally speaking, I wouldn't have gone in and gotten Maduro. In hindsight, I don't even have enough information to know if that was a bad call. So I may be wrong on that one. And so I'm kind of hesitant about being wrong on this one. But what is this negotiating about? Is this all about the nuclear deal with Iran? Because now I'm kind of confused. Are these guys so heinous that they shouldn't be in power, or should we be cutting deals to cement their power? So I feel like there's a lot going on that we don't know about, but I also feel the same sort of interconnection that you felt with Venezuela and Russia and China, because the sanctions, Venezuela could only sell its oil on the black market, and so China was getting it on the black market and getting a super duper discount. Is Iran doing the same thing? Yeah, they're part of that shady, not part of the rest of the world's SWIFT banking system. Would it be nice to bring them back online? It'd be nice to bring Iran back in some way. If you could hit a button and it would go back to those pictures they show you from the 70s in Iran, where the dudes are running around in suits and ties and the women don't have to have a headscarf on. In fact, you can go to the beach in Iran and women are wearing, oh my God, is that a bikini? It's a bikini. No. Because that's one of my big litmus tests on how I grade civilizations, current societies on planet Earth. Is your society okay with the bikini? Because if you're not okay with the bikini, I'm not okay with you. So 800-288-9227. We'll break this down a little bit more coming up with James Varney from Real Clear Politics next. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Are we going to war with Iran? Should we go to war with Iran? I'm James Parker, News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Let's ask the next guest, James Varney from Real Clear Politics. Now, James, we have Trump sending the Armada over there while we're doing some sort of negotiations for some sort of deal. And last time we saw an Armada sent somewhere, it was Venezuela. We know how that ended up. Are we about to see the same thing here? What about similar to what we did in Iraq? Yeah, I think that was in June. Do we not sponsor a good old coup anymore? That's what we used to do. I mean, that's kind of how we ended up in this mess in Iran specifically. But we don't do that anymore. We don't just support some revolution. Yep. Yeah, that whole Shaw thing didn't work out. We're talking with James Varney from Real Clear Politics. So you don't think we're going to do one of the snatch and grab raids? Because I love reading about that, because if everything's true, with the sonic weapon and like the dozens of Cuban mercenaries died, but 0 Americans died. That sounds like a movie. It doesn't even sound real. And this is why I can't be president, Varney, because if I knew we had that power, I'd be snatching up leaders all over the place. America, Varney. What is this deal? Why are we? I don't trust them for a second. I wonder why we worry about these guys so much. Pakistan has a nuclear weapon, and they probably hate us more than Iran does. So, what are we doing? What are we doing? All right, you got any good articles worth reading, Varney? Oh man, that's so good. I have a list of like 26 electric vehicle companies that have gone out of business. Yeah, man, maybe we need to collaborate on that one. This is James Varney, RealClearPolitics.com, RealClearInvestigations.com. Coming up next, 18% of the federal government's home health care spending and hospice spending comes from one county. One county, 18% of this one taxpayer program goes to one county. Of course, it's huge fraud. You'll hear about it next. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. All right, they're just throwing your tax money away. It's unbelievable how bad the fraud is. I don't know, you might believe it. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. They're starting to peel back California's fraud, and there's a duality I have on this one. Is it a coincidence that the two biggest names in the Democrat Party politics on the national level right now, at least people in actual elected office, you could argue that it'd be Tim Walz, who was just on the ticket, and then also Gavin Newsom, who's kind of their front runner for 2028. And then we've uncovered billions of fraud in Tim Walz's state. Now, you knew California was going to be bad, but you didn't know it was going to be this bad, did you? Fox News did a report that just in LA County, 18% of our nation's hospice spending or home health care spending? Here's the report. It's just not even believable.
One doctor billed the government $120 million in a single year, claiming to oversee 1,900 patients.
Hang on, doctors, is it possible to see 1,900 patients in a year? Because I mean, I think that sounds like a big number, but if you work 250 days a year, 5 days a week for 50 weeks, 2 weeks off, then you would have to see 8 patients a day? That kind of seems doable. The number, though, his services rendered $120 million, and that's just from the government side of it. That seems a little high.
One doctor billed the government $120 million in a single year, claiming to oversee 1,900 patients. With almost 2,000 hospice agencies, LA County has more than 36 states combined, and 30 times more than either Florida or New York.
18% of the whole country's home healthcare billing is coming out of Los Angeles County. How is that possible?
And take a look at this map, a cluster of 287 hospice providers in a 2-mile radius, some in strip malls, unmarked buildings, even a wrecking yard and vacant lot.
All of it is just paperwork. I could fill that out in Kazakhstan if I want and get a hospice license waiting for me.
You know what else we're going through right now? Government shutdown. Oh. Do you see how these are connected? Because right now there are Democrats who don't want to cut anything. There's some Republicans who went through and they want to cut some of the stuff that was found by Doge. And then there's people like me who want to cut all of that. There should be no federal hospice program. Go look at the Constitution. The founding fathers say, yes, the government should, establish a system of weights and measures, be able to raise armies. And we also need to be in charge of the hospice industry. Stop it. All of these programs are defrauded to the max. I bet you more than the national deficit every year is just fraud. I bet you which is the reason why they have to print money, which is the reason why our money is inflated, which is the reason why you've got a 25% pay cut over the last 5 years. We've all experienced 25% inflation since the day they discovered this new magic hoax of COVID. And it's because of this. This gave you a pay cut over the last 5 years. Your standard of living, unless you got massive raises, has gone down 25%. The reason why you could pay your bills 5 years ago and it's harder now is because of this. These people are not only, they're not directly stealing from you, but it's the same thing. Forcing the government to print more money is the same as taking money out of your account. You just don't see the number change. Make no mistake, this is the story that affects you the most. And the fact that this could be going on and it's not being universally condemned by everybody is the scariest part. The real tax isn't necessarily what they take out of your check. The real tax is that plus government spending. Because if they have to print some money, it's the same as going into your bank account. Because we're in about 2.5% inflation right now. If you have $100,000 in the bank, that's the same as the government going in. And I know it doesn't sound like a whole lot, but taking out $2,500. And you do that every year, it kind of compounds down. The real tax is government spending, Milton Friedman.
The real tax on the American people is what government spends. If the federal government spends $450 billion and only raises $400 billion in taxes, who do you suppose who pays that other $50 billion? Do you suppose the tooth fairy does? Inflation is, from this point of view, a form of taxation. If government spends more than it takes in, it has to meet the difference, either by printing money or by borrowing from the public at large.
So when you go to an Italian restaurant and you see fettuccine alfredo, $17 for a plate, your unsweet tea is $3.95, and you just swallow it. You shouldn't. It doesn't have to go through this. And if you think, well, that's just what it takes to grease the wheels of the economy. No, it doesn't. You realize until the Federal Reserve came along in like the 19 teens, about 100 something years ago, that there was basically minimal inflation, almost no inflation. Like the price of gold was static from the founding of the country until 1913. And I don't mean 100% static, but it stayed in a pretty narrow range. And since then, the price has gone down by like 90 or gone up by 97%. So, hello. Can we stop this now? Can we all universally agree to it? No. There's a big chunk of the country right now that sees what's going on in Minnesota and sees what's going on in California, and they're concerned about ICE. When you see $9 billion stolen from you, does a hippie pick up a guitar and make a song about being robbed blind, or ICE deporting illegal immigrants? Oh my God, they didn't.
If you're going to Minnesota, be sure to wear some flowers in your hair.
How about new?
Dude, you're being robbed blind. You're writing a song about all the criminals being deported by the mean guys in masks. We got a big problem in this country. Half this country doesn't even care about being robbed blind. They don't even care. Just whatever the TV tells them to be upset about, they'll be upset about that. The problem is you get the bill for that too. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the supposed backlash to Don Lemon getting arrested for invading the church services. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. If God wanted me to be skinny, why'd he make honey buns so delicious? I'm James Parker, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I thought you'd get a kick out of this. We're not going to take this very serious, but Jen Psaki, former White House spokesman under Barack Obama, has a show on M. Snow. And she goes to bat for Don Lemon and the ICE protesters that went in and interrupted a Christian church service. She thinks that's good. Yeah, go ahead. Picking on Christians is great. Yeah, when we go and we shoot up Joel Osteen's church, that's great. When we go Baptist church here in DFW, that's great. When the church, the Christian school shot up in Nashville, that's great. Christian school shot up in Minneapolis, that's great. Protesting ICE, interrupting their service, screaming at their kids, making them cry, blocking the hallway between kids and the daycare. That's great. It's all good. Nothing wrong with that. Just a journalist.
And all across the country, we saw high school students walking out of their schools. We saw massive, massive protests in places you might expect, like New York and Los Angeles. You can see some of those on your screen right now. And of course, just gigantic protests in Minneapolis itself. Look at that crowd. It's wild. But crowds of protesters like that were common all across the country today. Here was the size of the protest in San Francisco. Again, gigantic. This was the crowd in Madison, Wisconsin. You can see a sign there, so bad even the introverts are here, which I think is pretty humorous. Good on that one. This was the scene at the State House in Columbia, South Carolina today. You can see some of the signs there specifically mentioned the general strike. And here was the crowd in Cleveland, Ohio. The high there today was 13 degrees. 13 degrees. And still, this was the size of the crowd. This was the scene in Sacramento, California. This was the scene in San Antonio, Texas. You get the picture.
Yeah, I get the picture. We're being programmed here. You see how great this is? You see how many people showed up? Let me give you an example of one of the funny, clever signs, not one of the vulgar, evil signs. Kill ICE, ICE, F ICE, all that. No, here's one of the fun. Even the introverts are out here. It's so kitschy. Isn't this so fun? Everybody's so happy. No. They're angry. They're beating people up, chucking bricks, saying terrible things to people who are just doing their job, enforcing the laws as they're written. See how everybody is on our side and everybody thinks this way? Weak-minded people are influenced by this. You realize that, right? They're like, oh, gosh, if everybody thinks that, then maybe I should too. Maybe that's the thing that makes sense. If everybody, even if I don't know what's going on, if everyone else is doing it, I should probably go along with it, right? Yeah, great job. Hey, did you know there's a whole bunch of liberals in San Francisco? Yeah, newsflash. Thank you for showing that news. You know, there's a bigger protest than all of those that Jen Psaki didn't tell you about. That was the March for Life. It was just 2-3 weeks ago in D.C. It's unless there's a Million Man March or something to that effect. Every year, it's the biggest protest that happens in D.C. It gets zero news coverage because they don't want to show the rest of the world how popular it is to oppose them when it comes to abortion. No. No one believes abortion should be illegal or curtailed at all. No. Look, see, everyone's on our side and everyone's having such a good time. It's just a bunch of nice people. But here she is going to bat for Don Lemon specifically.
What I didn't know was that the Trump administration was going to give Americans a whole new reason to be furious. What I didn't know was that the Trump administration was going to cross yet.
Hang on. Before she even tells you the story, she already tells you that you're supposed to be furious about this. This is a whole new reason. All of America's furious. Really? I'm not furious about it. I'm not furious about it in the least. I bet half of us aren't, but she just lied. Is this news or propaganda? I mean, come on.
What I didn't know was that the Trump administration was going to give Americans a whole new reason to be furious. What I didn't know was that the Trump administration was going to cross yet another bright red line. Because today the Justice Department arrested 2 journalists because they covered an ICE protest. They arrested independent journalists.
No, not because they covered an ICE protest. It's because they participating in barging in and interrupting a worship service. 2 journalists for covering an ICE protest. Bro, that's so dishonest. That should be illegal.
Georgia Fort and former CNN anchor turned independent journalist Don Lemon. And Attorney General Pam Bondi was even quick to brag on social media that they were arrested at her personal direction. The White House put out this photo of Don Lemon claiming he had been involved in riots.
What do you mean claiming? He was there. It's on camera. He was involved. No, he didn't have a sign. He had a microphone, and he wasn't screaming in the face of children. He would just walked in and coordinated with the people that were. You can see with your own eyes. Of course he coordinated. Of course he was part of it. It's not like he was walking by and was like, hey, is that a protest over there? Let me walk on over here with my microphone. Maybe I can just surreptitiously get some sound bites out of it. No, nobody believes that. You don't believe that. You know, this is be infuriating. It's not infuriating to me. It's the most normal thing in the world that he got arrested. I hope they throw the book at him. And it only works if you do throw the book at him. Because here's the worst part. This is the most attention Don Lemon's gotten since he got kicked off of CNN. And if he has no negative consequences attached to this, then expect all these other people to do it too. These activists. You know, it's great. If they're on your team, they're an independent journalist. If they're not on your team, they're what, a political activist? I love it. It's fantastic. So yeah, go ahead and defend Don Lemon. But you know where this comes from? Remember Colbert was telling his audience just last week, ICE is worse than Nazis.
Bavino went on complaining.
Look, Dana, they're trying to portray Border Patrol agents and ICE agents as Gestapo, Nazi, and many other words.
Yes, do not compare ICE or Border Patrol agents to the Nazis. That's an unfair comparison. The Nazis were willing to show their faces.
Does everybody cheer for that? Did the Nazis interrupt worship services? Who's really worse than Nazis here? I don't even think the Nazis did that. On so many of these other issues, y'all do kind of overlap well with Nazis. I'm not saying the left is a bunch of Nazis, but economically speaking, you can't find any daylight between fascism and the Democrat Party. That's on economic issues. I'm not speaking in hyperbole. I'm not saying they're racist or they want to do a Holocaust or anything to that effect. I'm just saying they both love universal health care. They both love gun control. They both want free daycare. I mean, just go down the line. They love a whole lot of government regulations. They want to kick all religion out of schools. Yeah, who's worse than the Nazis? They want to turn the whole world into Scandinavia. They're led by some art school dropout vegetarian. Yeah, just raging red, team red symbols all over that one. But Don Lemon has to get some punishment, or this is going to even escalate. Because I know the truth. This isn't like, whoa, we're just holding these people accountable. No, go interrupt the mosque. Go interrupt the Islamic service, cowards. You just went and interrupted these people because you know they weren't going to do anything. Because you know they were going to turn the other cheek because we're not the violent ones. We don't riot. We don't throw bricks at people. You can go into that church and you're not going to come out bleeding. But how many times have you seen a independent journalist go into an Antifa riot and come out bleeding? 800-288-9227. And you still think you're the good guys? That's interesting. All right, coming up next. Things are getting really weird in the culture war here. Jesus got a shout out from Jelly Roll at the Grammys. And I know you didn't watch it because I didn't watch the Grammys either. But something interesting has happened between that and Nicki Minaj. We just keep clocking touchdowns over here. And you'll hear it next on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I got to tell you, it feels kind of weird when you're finally winning some of the culture war. It's the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. So Nicki Minaj was not at the Grammys last night. Neither was I. I didn't watch it. You didn't watch it. In fact, I didn't even really know it was on until all the viral videos started popping up on my X feed late last night. But one guy that was at the Grammys, Jelly Roll, he won his Grammy, and it got, it's not unusual to hear someone make a reference to Jesus or God or your Savior or whatever, but it's usually just something that's kind of thrown out there in the middle of thanking your agent and so, and I don't know, Drake or whoever. But in this one, you get about 1 minute before they start playing you the music and getting you the hell off stage. And Jelly Roll is trying to have a revival for getting Contemporary Country Artist of the Year. So he goes out there and he's lost a lot of weight.
Kick me off here. So
hang on, he's lost a lot of weight. Have you seen him lately? Because, he does that tattoo thing where you look like the desk I had to sit at when I was in in-school suspension. We called it SAC, suspended at school. But I had my own desk in the corner, a SAC that Coach Taylor saved for me. And it was all scribbled up. It looked like Jelly Roll.
I know they're going to try to kick me off here, so just let me try to get this out. First of all, Jesus, I hear you and I'm listening, Lord. I am listening, Lord. Second of all, I want to thank my beautiful wife. I would have never changed my life without you. I'd have ended up dead or in jail. I'd have killed myself if it wasn't for you and Jesus. I thank you for that. I thank you for my label, Broken Bow, Country Radio, baby. What's up, dog? Oh, Republic, John Manili, we did it, baby. There was a time in my life, y'all, that I was broken. That's why I wrote this album. I didn't think I had a chance, y'all. There was days that I thought the darkest things. I was a horrible human. There was a moment in my life that all I had was a Bible this big and a radio the same size and a 6x8 foot cell. And I believed that those two things could change my life. I believed that music had the power to change my life and God had the power to change my life. And I want to tell y'all right now, Jesus is for everybody. Jesus is not owned by one political party. Jesus is not owned by no music label. Jesus is Jesus, and anybody can have a relationship with him. I love you, Lord.
Yeah, so they got a little church going on at the Grammys. That's in between all the Satan worshiping and bouncing boobs and drugs. So that was kind of a nice break. For a lot of people, the only thing they hear about Christians is from people who want you to hate Christians. And so to have a guy who's clearly cool, he's winning a Grammy, Contemporary Artist of the Year. He's got tattoos all over his face. Looks like a Temu Post Malone. But what do they usually hear about Christians? Oh, they're just evil. They're just terrible. They're just Christo-fascists, right? Stephen Colbert, just Christo-fascist.
Project 2025 is an obvious and chilling blueprint for a Christo-fascist future.
Yeah, stop it. That's enough of that. So you have that weird win in the culture war. And then you remember last week, Donald Trump and Nicki Minaj came out on, I think it was Wednesday, announced that they're buddies. Donald Trump thanked her for her support.
We're also pleased. My daughter, she went crazy when she heard that this was happening. I want to go. She happens to be in the wrong state right now for that. But when she heard that there's a certain person that's here who's the greatest and most successful female rapper in history, Nicki Minaj. Come on. And Nicki makes a lot of cash. Not as much as Michael Dell. Not quite. Not as much. But that's okay. But Nicki makes a lot of money, and she's generously stepping up. She's investing hundreds of thousands of dollars.
See, isn't that a beautiful moment? Nicki Minaj announced that, and this kind of blew me away. Like, it's all right if you say, like, I don't agree with everything he does, but generally speaking, Trump's not a bad guy. Is how a lot of celebrities will couch or sort of come out of the closet, politically speaking. Nicki Minaj just blew through that. She said, no, I'm his number one fan.
Hello. Well, I don't know what to say, but I will say that I am probably the president's number one fan.
And so we're all trying to like adjust to this new reality to where the coolest female rap artist of all time is now on your team. How does that make you feel? So then we're getting some weird sort of offshoots of that. You know, like when there's a slow solar flare and the sun just throws something at you every once in a while. Flipping through social media, I saw a video, and the first time it went through, I thought it was AI because it had Nicki Minaj on one side, and then the camera sort of circled around back of her, and it was Donald Trump. And tell me if this doesn't at least sound like it's AI, but this is real. They're actually buddies now. They're bragging about hanging out with each other. This is cool.
Hello, guys. I'm with my favorite president, the best president of all time.
And I'm with the queen of rap.
What is going on? Nicki Minaj, I'm with the greatest president of all time. Donald Trump, I'm hanging out with the queen of rap. What is going on? Did we fall through a wormhole into another dimension? Are we cool now? I mean, I guess we were kind of cool because last year we were scarier than a bear. Remember that? The women were like, would you rather run into a random bear or a man in the woods? And they were like, I choose the bear. It's like, oh, well, at least I'm dangerous. And then you talk about it's like we're Lex Luthor, straight white Christian males. They're like, they're oppressing everybody. They just hold power over all the great decisions and positions of reigns of authority. And it's like, what? We are? We're over all these other people? I can affect the lives of all these other people just based solely on their skin color? Wow, what is this newfound power? I didn't know about that. I'm over here getting my ass kicked by the electric bill. And now we've got Nicki Minaj saying we're awesome. It's still weird that Trump's our president. This is great. I mean, especially if you're doing a talk show. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. So Jesus gets a shout out by Jelly Roll at the Grammys last night. Nicki Minaj is releasing cool viral videos with Donald Trump. Or you could say vice versa. Donald Trump's releasing cool viral videos with Nicki Minaj. And then you got to go out and see how this is playing in the rest of the media sphere. Well, I'll give you the next sort of controversy here. Draymond Green, who's a player in the NBA. He got a technical foul this week and he blamed it on racism. You'll hear that next on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there. Are NBA referees racist? I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. And I love it when you just reframe stories you see in the news just like that. Are NBA referees racist? And you got to think, well, I mean, I guess it's not impossible that they're racist. But if you are a racist, especially if you're racist against black guys, why would you choose that profession? Wouldn't that just be a beating? It'd just be surrounded by black excellence for, what is it, 83 games a year? I don't know how many games you ref. Wouldn't that be terrible? Is there a worse job to pick if you're racist? You have to be subservient and then just sort of follow around these black millionaires while they're doing big old tomahawk donks right in front of your face and posterizing people, getting cheered on and getting put on the Jumbotron and getting all kinds of awesome glory and chicks and media and treated like Adonis gods. So it kind of belies credulity that an NBA ref is going to be some sort of rabid anti-black racist. They would probably choose any other job. They would probably rather be a garbage man than be a ref in the NBA. In fact, what's a worse job? Is there a worse job for a white supremacist than to be a ref in the NBA? 800-288-9227. I kind of mean that rhetorically. Also, if you have any ideas, what would be worse? What could possibly be worse? The guy who has to hand out scholarships at Grambling? I don't know. What would it be? But in today's edition of, oh, yeah, everything's racist. Got it. Draymond Green. He got a technical foul over the weekend playing basketball. You don't even have to know what that is, ladies. But he, in talking to the press after the game, he kind of slipped in that the ref, he's white. And he put his hands up in a black man's face and sounds racist to Draymond Green.
I will tell you, though, I find it very ironic that I got a technical foul for telling a Caucasian referee not to put his hand in my face. As a black man in America, don't put your hand in my face. And I said, hey, don't put your hand in my face, and I got a tech. So I thought that was the most interesting thing of the night.
Did he try to explain himself?
He said, Draymond, this is your chance to stop talking to me, bro. Don't put your hand in my face. Oh, tech. Oh, okay. So, everybody want to talk about holding the line of respect. That line need to be held both ways. So if the line won't be held both ways, then the line won't be held from my way either, because we all men.
Right.
And we all can make decisions and choices. So let that be the last time that happened.
Or what? What are these threats? Bro, you just made like $1 million in the last 12 minutes while you were doing that press conference interview. You're not oppressed, sir. And, you kind of have a history of behavioral issues, even within the context of being an NBA player. Yeah, that's the ticket. It's just racism. That's why anyone would give Draymond Green a technical foul. Draymond Green. You don't have to know basketball to know that this is one of the maybe 10 basketball players most of us have heard of because he's been in so much trouble. I mean, who's worse than this guy? Ron Artest? He's not around anymore, but Metta World Peace was probably a little bit more of a problem child. But Draymond Green's one of the more well-known of problem children in the NBA. Dude, you're not oppressed. Pretty much everyone in the country, every man in the country would trade positions with you right now. You're oppressed. Oh, would you still be upset if that was a black ref that had put his hand in your face? Would you be accusing him of racism? No, doesn't make sense. No. So Draymond Green, a lot of us just know him from the Dave Chappelle stand-up bit.
Like that white black in the news all the time. Rachel Dolezal didn't even change her name. Her name is Rachel. I can't believe in that name. If you want my support, you're going to have to change your name to the blackest I've ever heard. You're going to have to change your name to Draymond Green. I don't know a blacker name than that. That is black on paper. If you type Draymond Green into Airbnb, that will log off automatically.
Yeah. That's where most of it's known from. But it's just tired, isn't it? And it's not getting the attention it used to get. It's not getting the oxygen it used to get. I am seeing a general malaise, dare I say fatigue, when it comes to these flippant, casual accusations of racism. Really? You're just going to slander some poor old guy because he's white? Yeah, that's why you got to tech Draymond Green. Meanwhile, we do have the beginning of Black History Month. And Dr. Callie, MD, has some advice for white men on Black History Month.
Hey, white men. Due to systemic and structural racism that Black women have had to endure, they only make 64 cents to every dollar that you make. So, as a fitting start to Black History Month, I want to take what you will make today, multiply it by 64%, and then take that difference and give it to some Black women today. This shows that you are honoring them, that you are appreciating them, and that you are dedicated to equity. And Black women, you know what to do.
What the hell is even that? How about new?
That's my combo response there. No, you know what? I have no sort of dedication or allegiance to equity. Equity, equalization of outcomes. How do you do that? Well, you have to take some from people who end up with more and give it to the people who end up with less. Well, who's going to be the arbiter of that system? Well, your friendly neighborhood socialist, the AOCs and Bernie Sanders of the world. This nice lady, Dr. Callie, MD, who's definitely not walking around with some sort of racial chip on her shoulder. You know, it used to be that we praised excellence, and that's what we're supposed to do if we follow the traditional values and mores of Western civilization. If we saw one group of people, just say like white men versus Black women, and they make 64 cents to the dollar that white men make. At some point in the conversation, wouldn't you say like, well, are they doing anything different? Is there anything in their background that's different? And not the color of their skin, and not whether or not their hair is straight. I mean, did they have a father in the household? How did they score on standardized tests? How many books were in the house when they were growing up? Have you ever seen these little surveys where they talk about and they break it out by race? How different cultures of people tend to have different amount of books in the house? And it's no big surprise here that the cultures that tend to have more books in the house, especially when there's young children around, tend to do better when it comes to academics. Number one being Asians. But guess who's at the bottom of that list? Did you think about that one, Dr. Callie, MD? And so maybe the solution is to focus on education more. Maybe buy some books and introduce them to your kids. Maybe have your kids see you reading books when they grow up, and they'll think that's normal, and they'll mimic it when they get older or even in high school. Maybe there's 18,000 other things. Maybe you could try a father before you blame racism and think, oh, well, I guess we just need to take white men down a peg. 800-288-9227, because that's the conclusion these people always come to. Oh, well, this isn't fair. Well, then we're just going to have to come up with some program that's going to take these opportunities away from these guys who deserve it and give it to these other people who didn't deserve it based solely on the color of their skin. And that sounds a little bit racist to me. Sorry if I don't sign up for that with much enthusiasm, if at all. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next on The James Show, Hunter Biden ghosted his child. She spoke out and got roundly ignored, but you'll hear 3 great clips next on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I'm your host, James Parker. The top story in serious news is the armada that's going to Iran. We'll talk about that again when I come back at 2 o'clock. I bet you Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins have something to say about it coming up next. But then it's sort of a second headline. It's just this general battle that's going on in the culture wars where it feels like we're winning. It feels like we're clocking some wins here. Because you have Nicki Minaj not only saying she's Trump's #1 fan, but she was tweeting over the weekend, God will not be mocked. Blessed is the mighty name of Jesus Christ. Every tongue that rises up in judgment shall be condemned and put to shame. Watch. You got Jelly Roll winning the Grammy for top contemporary country act. And he turned it into a 1-minute sermon, basically. So we're clocking some victories here. And I don't know. It's kind of weird. I'm not complaining. Believe me, I'm not complaining. Just not used to being at the cool kids table. This is Tom in Grapevine. You're on WBAP. Hey, Tom.
Hey. Yeah, 90% of your audience is conservative, probably, right? Right around that?
It's really about 70. There's 20% of them that are dedicated lefty, and then about 10% that don't know what they are. They were just flipping through and thought my bumper music sounded relatable.
Okay. Well, these stories are a dime a dozen. I mean, I'm not sure why we give life to them even. It seems like we, by exposing them or talking about them, just gives them credibility. And I would just ignore this stuff and move on and talk about the pro side instead of a defensive side always.
So which one story are you talking about from today?
Oh, the Cali and the basketball player.
Oh, the Draymond Green?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a pretty worthy touchstone because there's a lot of people who, if you leave these racism charges unchallenged, that they end up sticking and becoming the narrative.
In a sense, in a way, some of them, but there's so many of them. And every time somebody cries racism, mainstream media goes nuts and reacts.
Well,
reactionary.
No, and I don't disagree with you. The point I was bringing up today is how there isn't really that much of a reaction. There seems to be a fatigue where 20 years ago, something like this would have been bigger news. A lot of people just are starting to, it's losing its luster. And it's precisely because we keep talking about it. You know, we keep bringing up the fact that, Draymond Green's making, I don't know, $6 million a year here, talking about being oppressed. And that makes people roll their eyes. So the next time there's a racial accusation, the narrative that we have supplanted their narrative with is that it's an eye-rolling hyperbole to something that probably had nothing to do with race.
I agree. And there's 1,000 examples like that every single day. And I just don't expose it, is my opinion.
Fair enough. I appreciate your input there, Tom and Grapevine. Thank you, sir. Cool. Joe Waxahachie, you're next up on WBAP. What do you think?
Hey, good morning. I was listening to your statistic on black women making 64% of what white men make. This is my question. If CEOs know they can hire somebody at 64% of the prevailing wage, why are not all employees black women? I mean, predatory CEOs should say, I can save a third on my bottom line hourly wage by hiring black women because I can only pay them 64%. But they don't. What's the deal?
So do you have a bunch of libertarian economic nerd friends? Because
No, I don't.
Oh, because we're all just jumping all over this one. Did you know, Joe, that the black unemployment rate used to be lower than the white unemployment rate? It's now around double, but it used to be lower. Did you know that?
I did not.
Well, and the reason it was lower is precisely because what you said. Because at a time, about 100 years ago, up till about 100 years ago, if you were an employer, you really could pay a black person about 2/3 of what you pay a white person. And so if you were a guy that was unloading ships at the dock, or you were a guy that was, running a big farm, or you were a guy that had a big factory, you really would go out and you would hire a ton of blacks. Even if you were the biggest racist in the world, you'd be turning away white people and giving those jobs to black people because it really was cheaper. What turned that around was FDR decided that he was going to help poor people with the minimum wage, which was really the white wage, and it just priced blacks out. And so then employers say, well, if I'm going to have to pay the white wage, then I'm going to implement my racism here and just hire white people. And from that point on, black unemployment has been higher than white unemployment, and it was because of minimum wage. It was to prevent people from undercutting us. But that also tells us if the claim really is true that employers can just willy-nilly for no other reason pay women and or minorities, and especially minority women, less than white men, then they would hire them in droves. Their unemployment rate would be lower than ours, but it's not. So we can use that as evidence that their theory's bunk.
Thanks, James.
Love it. You brought up a great point. All right, 2 good calls in a row. Appreciate it. I don't know. The first guy didn't agree with me, but Tom didn't have to agree with me for it to be a good call. 800-288-9227. Hunter Biden's baby mama did an interview last Friday. You're going to love 3 quick clips next on The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey, do you think if one of Donald Trump's kids had an out-of-wedlock baby after he had cheated and knocked up his dead brother's ex-wife, you think if he ghosted the stripper, she was doing interviews, that it would get picked up a little more and get a little more attention? Hunter Biden got some stripper pregnant, but it's a little bit longer story than that. He actually moved her to DC from Arkansas and had her as sort of a kept girl. She was an air quotes employee at his Rosemont Seneca venture capital firm. Remember, he was running the hedge fund. Well, she was just in there pushing papers. She has no experience. She went straight from stripper to venture capital. Yeah, right. He's just keeping her there so he has a convenient, human body to use as a receptacle. Just stellar guy. And then, when the news got wind of it, he had to let her go. Denied paternity of the baby all the way into court. Paternity test shows he is the father. Made some bogus agreement that he's going to pay her, but he hasn't been keeping up his side of the deal. In fact, he has completely ghosted his child now. And he says it's because, according to her, she was on the Colin Finnerty on Newsmax. Her name's London Roberts. She was saying that Hunter ghosted since the book came out.
What do you think changed with Hunter? What went wrong here?
I wrote a book, and he has not spoke to Navy because of that. And
yeah. So then later in the interview, she was saying that he has cut off the daughter and has no communication. And his response is, well, I wasn't ordered by the court to have a relationship with my daughter. I'm just supposed to let her pick out a couple paintings, and that's all I'm required to do by law.
Hunter's attorney responded to this motion. This was today, London. Here's the court filing. Here's the quote. Any failure to communicate with the child is not punishable by contempt, as the order does not order the defendant to communicate with the child.
Dude, can you imagine not communicating with your own child? Can you imagine going and fighting a court order to have a relationship with your child and say, well, it doesn't specifically say I have to communicate with her? I can't stand to be away from my kids for a day. Like, can you? That is not a healthy human being. That is signs of a sociopath, probably narcissistic sociopath, which is probably what you'd be after 40 years of being high on crack. But it's just sad. Like, I feel sorry for not just the mom there, but especially the daughter. Your grandfather was previously the president of the United States. And neither he nor his son act like you exist. Oh, make no mistake. There has been no contact with Joe Biden either. For those of you who have grandchildren, can you imagine not only not having any interest in seeing them, but refusing to see them when they want to see you? What kind of broken soul, half human are you?
Joe Biden is 83 years old now. You know he's got terminal cancer. Has he made any effort to reach out to his granddaughter?
no, he has not.
Dude, if his last name was Trump, that would be the top story in the country right now. You would be beaten over the head with that over and over and over. This is 10 times worse than the Access Hollywood tapes. This is 10 times worse than, the John McCain. I like guys who don't get caught. This is 10 times worse than anything they've thrown at you for Trump. Just abandoning your own child and grandchild, abandoning your own family. It's not even politically expedient anymore. He's not running for office anymore, and he still won't acknowledge his grandkid or have any kind of relationship with him. Neither will Hunter. You're not running for anything. You don't even need the press to be on your side. You can withstand the bad press. Isn't your family worth it? Nope. Not even your own family. Power is more important than your own family. Crack, more important than your own family. Matthew in Dallas, you're on WBAP.
Hypocrites. And what I'm saying is, got a couple things to say. You might have to help me out with names.
Sure.
But one thing I'm going to say is Jimmy Kimmel is allowed to say anything he wants about Charlie Kirk, and it's free speech. But yet there's a gentleman who, and you have to help me out on this on your news, he sold out 6 comedy shows in Minneapolis, and he got caught on video making fun of the young lady Renee who got shot.
Oh, he didn't have to get caught on video. They already hated him anyway because he's a known entity. I
know, but he got canceled. But what happened to freedom of speech there? I mean, what happened to It's okay for Kimmel to make fun of Charlie Kirk, and it's not okay for. I don't condone anybody being killed, or I don't want anything like that. But it just kills me that they're hypocrites, and they just want. If it helps them out, they want it. If it doesn't help them out, they don't want it.
Matthew,
and then
your
go ahead.
specificity is right on, but it's even unnecessary because I can throw back at you, Matthew. Forget the Ben Bankus situation. When has any comedian ever had a show canceled for having a left-wing opinion on anything?
I totally agree. I
There
don't
you go.
get how it's working hypocritical. And then the other thing I want to say is I think there's a problem with the hatred on the left. I mean, I am pro-Trump and I'm right. A lot of my family's left. I don't talk about it, but I never openly I don't hate Biden. I don't hate Obama. I didn't care for Michelle. I didn't care for Kamala, but I didn't hate him. And this hatred for Trump. He's your president. Whatever happened is just supporting your president. And that's what I do, no matter who it is.
Matthew, you got to understand, they've had 10 straight years of being conditioned that this guy's a Nazi, racist, misogynist. He probably farts in elevators. He's just the worst person ever. And so they don't actually know the guy. They hate the caricature that they've been taught of this guy.
Would you feel like this is okay to say that I agree Trump is a bit of a bully, but I think the USA needs a bully?
Yeah, I have no qualms about someone with a personality type that enjoys conflict between running a country. He's not here to host a dinner party. In fact, that might be preferable for someone who's running the country. All good points. Thank you, Matthew. We're going to end with David in Bedford. You're last up, so be good.
Yes, sir. Here we go. The hypocrisy and the double standard is just crazy. But, when Obama they talk about, Obama slid 3 million out of the country, illegals. But while he was sliding them out the door on one side, he was sliding them in about 1 million the other way in Democrat cities, in sanctuary cities, behind the doors. That's why they didn't fuss and fight about it. And now Trump is, and those are congressional seats. Even they're probably voting illegally and being told, you'll have amnesty one day. Just go ahead and vote. It's okay. Just vote anyway. And Trump's trying to get them out of here, and now they're mad about it because they're going to lose congressional seats. That's what's going on.
David in Bedford's talking about a report that came out last week. Now that we're halfway through the decade, and we just finished year 2025, a report comes out that says if things continue on the current trend line, Texas is going to gain 4 congressional seats, and California is going to lose a few, and New York and Illinois, a bunch are going to lose a bunch, and Florida's going to gain a whole lot. So, yeah, that's part of it. All good points. Man, good callers today. I appreciate that. Hey, I'll come back at 2 o'clock if you come back too, 2 to 5. Actually, I'm going to come back whether you do or don't. It's kind of my job. But in the meantime, Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins is coming up next on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP.